Hello, today we'll be going over part 4 of ranking every talisman in Elden Ring. Today's video will contain the best talismans, the top 20 talismans in Elden Ring. And of course, if you're enjoying this type of content, don't forget to like and subscribe. And now on to the top 20 talismans in Elden Ring. And at number 20, we have the Great Shield Talisman. This talisman reduces the amount of stamina damage you take while shielding by 10%. This talisman can be rather helpful for those players that like to run a Great Shield and a thrusting weapon, such as a rapier or spear, which is a build that allows you to attack and defend. The main weakness of the build is the amount of stamina that you lose, and the Great Shield Talisman can help you with just that. The build itself can be rather annoying, albeit effective, and the Great Shield Talisman can help with this kind of build, so it'll be taking the 20th spot. And at number 19, we have the Bull Goat's Talisman. This talisman seems to increase your poise by 33%. However, it reduces your poise damage by 25%. It's weird. However, that is a hefty chunk to your poise effectiveness, and poise can be a rather valuable stat to have, especially in PvP. Poise can be a rather valuable stat in Elden Ring PvP, as you will be able to attack without being interrupted. As long as you're able to stay on top of your enemy, you can hit them non-stop, and high poise is further accentuated through the Bull Goat's Talisman. Just a very good talisman in PvP, however in PvE, you sometimes don't want to make those kinds of trades, making it a little bit less valuable in PvE, so it'll be taking the number 19th spot. And for numbers 15 through 18, we have the Heirloom Talismans. Each of these talismans will increase strength, dexterity, intelligence, or faith by 5. These can be pretty handy if you ever need a little extra stat boost here or there. And I find these to be plenty more valuable than the Sword Seal Talismans, since usually you only want an increase to a few stats, and these don't come with a damage reduction decrease. Something I noticed when making this video was that the Prosthesis Wearer Heirloom also increases the dexterity by 5, which is the same amount as Millicent's Prosthesis. However, Millicent's Prosthesis also has its other effect. So yes, I would recommend Millicent's Prosthesis over this Heirloom. However, despite that, these are all very good and can be used in almost any build, so I will be putting them here. And at number 14, we have the Urgerys Arsenal. This talisman increases your equip load by 19%. Now this is a very solid increase in weight, which can be a rather good stat to have. However, this may be a personal thing for me, but I tend to put a chunk of endurance on my builds, as it increases both your stamina and your weight, and generally it is enough for me. However, if you do want to use heavier weapons, as well as some heavier armor, this can just help you get the right amount of equip load without being too heavy, so this will be taking the 14th spot. And at number 13, we have the Ritual Sword Talisman. This talisman increases your attack power by 10% when your health is at maximum. Now hear me out on this one, as this may be a surprise that this is this high. Getting a flat attack power buff can be quite hard to come by, and getting an attack power buff while you're at your safest, being at max health, makes this a much better alternative to the Red Feathered Branch Sword in a general sense. This talisman can be used in PvE and PvP, however it is more useful in PvE, as if you get damaged you can heal yourself back to full, which is not something you'll be doing in a duel. And hey, it's a 10% attack power boost, who doesn't want it? So it'll be taking the number 13th spot. And at number 12 we have the Viridian Amber Medallion. This talisman increases your stamina by 15%, which is another stat that can be helped by increasing the endurance stat, much like the Urgerys Arsenal. And the only reason this isn't higher is because it is outclassed by a couple talismans that are higher in this list. Otherwise, I love stamina, I can't get enough of it. This will be taking the number 12th spot. And at number 10 and number 11, we have the Lord of Blood's Exaltation and the Kindred of Rot's Exaltation. The Lord of Blood's Exaltation raising attack power by 20% for 20 seconds when a blood loss occurs, also known as a bleed proc, and the Kindred of Rot increasing attack power by 20% for 20 seconds when poisoning or rot occurs in the vicinity, being a poison proc or a scarlet rot proc. Now these talismans can be very effective, but only when running certain builds. Usually arcane builds make the most use out of this, as it pairs best with bleed and poison, and I do not think scarlet rot can be affected by any one stat. And although it would take a few hits to get them going, a 20% boost is nothing to scoff at. Lord of Blood's Exaltation likely being the better of the two, as bleed procs are instant and can be used repeatedly. A common way to proc Lord of Blood's Exaltation in duels is to use the Ash of War Seppuku, which also gives you an attack boost after dealing damage to yourself. Now, my problem with these talismans in PvP is by the time you get a bleed, poison, or scarlet rot proc, they're likely already going to die in the next couple hits anyways, and the attack power boost doesn't mean too much. However, these are some of the most broken PvE talismans out there. If the enemy can be affected by these status effects, you should be able to shred through the boss with your increased attack power. And shredding through certain bosses is something that bleed builds do already really well. They are amazing talismans by their own right for PvE alone, so they'll be taking the 10 and 11 spots. And at number 9, the Radagon Icon. Now before I talk about this talisman, I'll explain a little bit on how dexterity affects spellcasting. Increasing your dexterity will shorten the time of casting a spell. You could say, wow, that was a good explanation, Frawgue. I know. I know it was. Increasing dexterity for decreased spellcasting time is much like increasing dexterity for damage. It has a decreased return on investment the higher you go. And the Radagon icon will give you quote-unquote virtual dexterity, which is used for just spellcasting, as opposed to just giving you dexterity. It will give you a flat amount of 30 virtual dexterity, which is a solid chunk, but it is a flat amount. Therefore, if you have high dexterity already, it will be less effective. Whereas if you have, say, 10 dexterity, it will be more effective, as that will be increased to 40. As there is a bigger difference between 10 and 40, as there is between 40 and 70. Therefore, not being quite as helpful in high dexterity builds. But the shortened casting time can be nice regardless. And from what I understand, if you have a lower dexterity, let's say around like 10, if you equip the Radagon icon, your casting time will increase by around 10%, which is very significant. But do please note that this does not work with the Dragon Communion incantations. But keeping that in mind, the Radagon icon can be useful for most spellcasting builds, and it'll be taking the number 9 spot. And at number 7 and number 8, we have the Graven Mass and Frawgue's Canvas Talismans. The Graven Mass Talisman increasing the potency of sorceries by 8%, and the Frawgue's Canvas Talisman increasing the potency of incantations by 8%. Unfortunately, these values do not contribute to buffs or healing or anything like that. These values are only additive to damaging spells. However, some spells can be very good in both PvE and PvP, making these talismans very flexible for both roles. Now, the 8% might not be too much, but it can be widely applied. Overall, very good talismans and are basically necessary in any spellcasting build, all unless you only like to heal or buff yourself up with spells, and these will not become useful at all, so these will be taking the 7 and 8 spots. And above them, at number 6, we have the Shard of Alexander, which increases the damage of skills by 15%. Much like spells, skills can be applied in a variety of ways, some being as simple as the kick skill, or being as broken as the corpse piler skill. Yes, the one on Rivers of Blood. Now, 15% is a significant boost in damage, and skills can be applied to a great variety of many things. Definitely a favorite, this will be taking the number 6 spot. Okay, so I actually messed up this tier list a little bit, so I'll be using 2 talismans to take up 1 slot, as that would be much easier than remaking the entire list. So at number 5, we will have both the Crimson Amber Medallion and the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. Crimson Amber Medallion, being the best of the Amber Medallions in my opinion, increases your maximum HP by 8%, and the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman will reduce the amount of damage you take by physical damage by 20%. And normally the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman is so much better than the Crimson Amber Medallion, except there's a catch to the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. It is significantly weaker in PvP, where its effectiveness is instead 5% over the 20%. So in my opinion, Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman is a must-have in PvE, whereas it will get outclassed by the Crimson Amber Medallion in PvP. Both are very nice in their respective places, and you can even combine them if you want to. Especially the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman in PvE, as that will increase your survivability immensely. Both are very good and will make you much tankier, so both will be taking the number 5 spot. I apologize again for messing up the list. And at number 3 and number 4, we have the Gold Scarab and the Silver Scarab. The Gold Scarab increasing the amount of runes you obtain by 20%, and the Silver Scarab increasing your item discovery by 75%. Now, increasing the amount of runes you get just throughout your playthrough, even if it is just by 20%, can be very good for you. Increasing your item discovery by 75%, which is almost doubling your item discovery by the way, can make grinding for certain weapons or armor much easier. There are also the consumable items called the Foul Foots, which can either increase your rune acquisition or your item discovery as well, and if combined with the Scarabs, can make grinding for runes or items much easier and so much quicker. Now, these have no value in PvP, however they can be so integral to your average playthrough, which is why I brought them up this high. So the Scarabs will be taking the number 3 and 4th spots. And at number 2, the second best talisman in the game will be the Green Turtle Talisman. The Green Turtle Talisman will increase your stamina recovery speed by almost 18%. Now, stamina is such an important tool for any fight, and the fact that this talisman lets you get it back faster is kind of bonkers, regardless of if you're fighting a boss or your best friend. And that is it. It is a very simple but effective talisman. It will be the second best talisman in Elden Ring. And even better than that, in the number 1 spot, the best talisman in Elden Ring, it should come to no surprise, I will be choosing the Urgerys Favor. This talisman actually does 3 things. It increases your HP by 4%, it increases your stamina by almost 10%, and it increases your equip load by 8%. All 3 of these stats are very good and can help you in both PvE and PvP. And because of this, it outclasses the Viridian Amber Medallion, of which the Green Turtle Talisman also does. Another very simple talisman, it just makes your character better. So yes, I do consider this to be the best talisman in Elden Ring.